Hello friends. I think it's no secret that Pepsi is one of the most famous and beloved soft drinks of millions of people around the world. You can buy it even in the most remote corner of the planet. And all this thanks to its pleasant, invigorating, and refreshing sweet taste. If all the Pepsi produced over more than 100 years were poured into bottles and laid out in a single line, it could wrap around the earth an unreal 4,500 times. Just think about and imagine these gigantic production scales. And this number grows every day. You could talk for days about Pepsi-Cola, because the company's history and everything connected with it is closely intertwined with politics, drama, bankruptcy, fierce competition with Coca-Cola, and thousands of other stories. Yet, despite the love of millions, this road to recognition was far from easy. They say that success isn't an accident, but rather consistent forward movement. So, friends, I suggest we dive together today into this incredible 120-year history and learn the path the company took to become one of the leaders in the consumer goods market. The story behind this surprisingly tasty drink is very interesting and unusual. But what has always interested me the most is one question. Who came up with this billion-dollar empire that surrounds us everywhere? Who could have first thought of it? And most importantly, how did these people manage to turn their dreams into reality? After all, there are plenty of examples of good ideas that remain just on paper. I'm sure that after watching this video, Pepsi-Cola will be more for you than just a famous logo. You will learn a lot of new and interesting things you might not have known about. Now, let's transport ourselves back to the distant year of 1867. It was on May 27, 1867, that a boy named Caleb Davis Bradham was born in North Carolina. Not much is known about Caleb's youth. After graduating from university, he studied at the Maryland College of Medicine and was burning with the idea of becoming a doctor, while simultaneously working as a regular pharmacist in a small drugstore. Unfortunately, a family crisis forced Caleb to drop out and return home. After that, he taught for a short while, but he was always drawn to medicine. So, having saved up enough money, by the age of 30 he opened his own drugstore in downtown New Bern, now a small town, with a population of just 27,000. Since 1798, so-called soda fountains, special machines that dispense carbonated water, had come into fashion. They are now found in fast food restaurants, but they no longer carry the same deep meaning as before. One of these was located in Bradham's drugstore at the end of the 19th century. People came to his establishment not only for medicine, but also for casual conversation. At that time, this was common practice. Local residents often loved to sit for hours in Caleb's pharmacy, listening to the jukebox and drinking carbonated beverages. To treat his clients, in 1893, Bradham decided to experiment with various combinations of juices, spices, and syrups. He combined several flavors, and his customers liked a drink made from rare oils and cola nut extract the most. The soda was later named after its creator, Brad's Drink. It was a non-alcoholic beverage without narcotic substances, which, to our surprise, were often used by other pharmacists at the time. There is a theory that the drink got the name Pepsi-Cola due to the pepsin enzyme in its composition, but this data is unconfirmed. A more plausible version is that the name came from the fact that Caleb Bradham listed the primary indication for consuming the syrup as stomach disorder, namely dyspepsia. But be that as it may, in 1898, the pharmacist renamed his Brad's drink to Pepsi-Cola. That was the first time this phrase was uttered. The mixture, according to the inventor himself, was supposed to aid digestion and act as a special enzyme. Gradually, news of the miraculous syrup spread through the town, and hundreds of people started coming for portions of the not only medicinal but also tasty syrup, which eventually created queues. Caleb didn't expect this, but his business was rapidly taking off, and the cash register was ringing more every day. Of course, pharmacists from neighboring drugstores, in turn, tried to replicate Brad's drink, but none of them managed to come up with anything even close. So, day after day, week after week, the drink became more popular not only in his hometown, but also beyond its borders. And within a year, even outside his home state, the sweet and beneficial syrup gained incredible popularity, and in 1903, Caleb registered it as an official trademark. That same year, Bradham launched his first advertising campaign, featuring the then popular race car driver Barney Oldfield. He presented Pepsi to the masses as a good, refreshing, and strengthening drink. After that, sales reached nearly 80,000 liters of Pepsi per year. Demand was outstripping supply, and production capacity didn't allow for long-term storage of Pepsi Cola. It was then that Bradham got the idea to start bottling the drink in glass bottles. Finding a bottle supplier and partners in the regions, the soda soon spread across the nearest 24 states. It was instantly snapped off store shelves, and people lined up to taste this magnificent and unforgettable flavor for the first time. The young company's affairs went well until 1923, but due to rising sugar prices following World War I, the Pepsi company went bankrupt within months. There were two options. First, to stop production, and second, to sell Pepsi for a pittance. Furthermore, in those difficult times, there were serious sugar shortages. Caleb tried using a sugar substitute molasses, but the result was disastrous. After the war, sugar prices rose even higher, but Bradham still bought it. And yet, however sad it may be, the attempts to stay afloat were unsuccessful. It's worth mentioning that Bradham kept the recipe a closely guarded secret. No one but him knew it, and production was set up to make it difficult to understand. But the crisis took its toll. To formally declare bankruptcy, Bradham had to declassify the drink's recipe and even certify it in court. The path to success turned out to be not as sweet as it seemed at the very beginning. Caleb had to put the company's shares up for sale for pennies, just to leave himself something to live on. That's how the connection between Pepsi Cola and its founding father was severed. That same year, the company was sold to Craven Holding Corporation, headed by an unknown millionaire, for a measly $30,000. But 8 years later, the company went bankrupt again and quickly passed into the hands of a third owner. The Pepsi brand was put up for sale for just $10,000. This time, the new director became Charles Guth, president of the confectionery firm Loft Inc. Under his astute and tough leadership, Pepsi completely changed its design and made a very bold marketing move that allowed it to stay afloat during the Great Depression of the 1930s. It offered twice the amount of drink for 5 cents compared to Coca-Cola, whose bottle cost 12 cents. The new owner kept the margin minimal. The goal was to cover production costs, with no talk of profit. This almost generous promotion didn't hit customers' wallets but sent Cola a serious knockout blow, thanks to billions of unsold bottles and multi-million-dollar losses. Here, it's probably worth mentioning that Pepsi is almost the same age as Coca-Cola. It was invented 12 years after Cola appeared on the market. Thus, thanks to a bold financial move, Pepsi very quickly won the love of the younger generation and thereby significantly increased its ranks of fans. As for the company logo, it changed literally every decade. From 1898 to the 1940s, it featured red letters on a white background. The only thing that changed was the font. But during World War I, Pepsi radically changed its logo to a red and blue circle divided in half by a wavy white stripe, imitating the colors of this flag as a sign of respect for American soldiers. It was during this period that Pepsi overtook other popular drinks like Royal Crown and Dr. Pepper and became the second most popular drink after Coca-Cola. In 1963, Donald Kendall became the new CEO of the company. Under his leadership, the brand underwent significant changes, in the literal sense of the word, for the company. After the founder, he was the second key figure. Kendall started at Pepsi Cola Company as a regular sales representative and, over several decades of hard work, rose through the ranks to become vice president of marketing. In 1956, during the Cold War between the USA and the USSR, it seemed almost impossible for a true capitalist to, according to Soviet belief, oppressed workers in his factories to penetrate the Iron Curtain. But Donald Kendall proved otherwise. At the American National Exhibition in Moscow in 1959, legends say the ideological inspiration was President Dwight Eisenhower himself, who wanted to amaze Soviet people with the American way of life. The Americans succeeded. Several 100,000 magazines, brochures, and books about America were taken within the first days, down to the last copy, and they had to be nailed down. But this didn't stop Soviet citizens, and while Soviet citizens sampled American baked goods and looked at the first legally imported avant-garde paintings by American artist Jackson Pollock, and an American congressman tried to find common ground with Nikita Khrushchev, the relations between him and the American government were, to put it mildly, not great. Kendall managed to slip the Soviet leader a glass of Pepsi, which Khrushchev drank without any doubt. Besides him, ordinary Soviet citizens also tried the drink over those few days, ultimately drinking nearly 3 million glasses of Pepsi. By the early 1970s, the USSR did decide to ease tensions a bit, and one of the instruments for this, among others, was the Pepsi Company. The USA and the Soviet Union agreed to cooperate. The result of their agreement was that Pepsi became the official distributor of Stolichnaya vodka in the USA, and the USSR, in turn, began selling Pepsi drinks across its vast country. In 1974, Pepsi boldly and confidently opened a window into the USSR, introducing Soviet citizens to the legendary soda. Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev himself became the face of the brand at that time. The soda's advertising slogan was, "Be sociable, drink Pepsi," and a photo of the first secretary of the Communist Party Central Committee, with the caption "Khrushchev learns to be sociable" instantly spread through world media. Before this time, ordinary Soviet citizens could only hear about the miracle drink, but when it first appeared on the shelves, it was swept away faster than anything. The company confidently secured its place in the market, displacing a huge number of local producers. Pepsi meant cool. Every Soviet child, and probably adult, when faced with a choice, preferred Pepsi. Donald Kendall's merits did not go unnoticed, and he soon headed the company. The business contacts he made in Moscow helped him, in the early 70s, secure a monopoly on selling Pepsi in the Soviet Union, blocking the ever-present Coca-Cola from accessing the Iron Curtain. This was the second knockout for the irreconcilable competitor in the West. The conclusion of such a contract was a sensation. The New York Times wrote in a front-page article that the soda had become the first capitalist product available in the Soviet Union. However, one problem immediately arose. The ruble was not an international currency. They had to pay for Pepsi with something. By the time the contract expired in 1989, over 20 Pepsi-Cola production plants were operating in the USSR. However, by that time, the Americans were no longer satisfied with being paid in vodka for the concentrate of the famous soda. The Soviet government offered to settle with weapons, to which the company graciously agreed. Mikhail Gorbachev, who led the USSR at the time, did not argue with the Americans and revised the previous agreement. With one signature from the General Secretary, the Pepsi Company became the owner of 17 submarines, 1 cruiser, and 1 frigate. The submarines sold were diesel, the cruiser belonged to the Project 58, and the frigate turned out to be a Project 31 destroyer. Thus, as funny as it may sound, in just one deal, Pepsi acquired the 6th most powerful navy in the world. Once, Kendall, in a conversation with the US National Security Advisor, joking about the payment for Pepsi products with Soviet weapons, quipped, "We are destroying the USSR much faster than you." By the end of the 70s, the Pepsi Company was already one of the largest corporations in the world. In 1980, the company officially became a face of the Olympic Games and one of the main sponsors. By this time, the company's annual profit in the USSR amounted to no less than $180 million. Thrilling and significant days for the company were May 17th to 21st, 1988. It was during these few days that an advertisement consisting of 4 clips first appeared on Soviet television. In 2 of them, the main face was the idol of millions, Michael Jackson. As we know, there is no patented recipe for success, but one of its main ingredients can be singled out: advertising. As early as 1960, Pepsi began collaborating with the Badu agency and did not miss. In any commercial, Pepsi was presented not just as a drink made from water and syrup. Pepsi is a lifestyle. Pepsi is a mood. Just remember the advertising campaigns that appeared in the 70s with the slogan "The Pepsi Challenge." As a result of a blind taste test, it turned out that people preferred Pepsi over Coke in 3 out of 5 cases. This move caused quite a stir for the opponent and forced Coca-Cola to change its formula and add more sugar. Such a monumental step led to the immediate dismissal of all top managers of the company and a return to the classic recipe. But this was only the beginning of the advertising wars that we can still observe today. In 1984, Wayne Calloway assumed the position of company president. The result of his work was a winning advertising campaign featuring dozens of global celebrities. During this period, the faces of Pepsi were such youth idols as Madonna, Michael Jackson, basketball star Shaquille O'Neal, Britney Spears, and even the public and football world's favorite, David Beckham. Regarding the advertising budget, PepsiCo holds all the records. The contract with Britney Spears cost several $1,000,000 and became one of the most expensive in history. The list of stars who appeared in Pepsi commercials is very long. Pepsi also made a name for itself in cinematography. The company was one of the first to use subtle product placement. The drink was mentioned in films and cartoons like Terminator 2, Judgment Day, The Needle, Holidays in Prostokvashino, The Last Boy Scout, Back to the Future. Through them, The company loudly announced to the world that advertising is not only an effective product promotion tool but also a special, unique work of art. Of course, PepsiCo is not just Pepsi-Cola in the traditional sense of a drink. It's a huge product line. One of the most popular is Pepsi Generations, the classic version of the drink with designs from the 1940s up to the early 2000s. Pepsi Light, Pepsi Max, Pepsi Zero, Pepsi Cherry, and a huge number of other Pepsi varieties were released in different years for specific markets. For example, in Japan, PepsiCo's partner is the local company Suntory, which produces limited editions of Pepsi with flavors like icy cucumber, salty watermelon, baobab flower, strawberries and cream, cinnamon, and more. Currently, the Pepsi company is led by Indra Nooyi, an American businesswoman of Indian origin. She is called a brilliant strategist who assembled a team of top managers, colleagues, and friends who were completely dedicated to her ideas and work. Under her leadership, the company significantly expanded its range of food and beverages. The modern company PepsiCo is a manufacturer of carbonated soft drinks, dairy products, snack foods, juices, and even baby food. Food and drinks are things that will always be relevant, even in a crisis. The list of brands grows every year, thereby increasing the company's stock value and profit. PepsiCo owns a huge number of trademarks. Depending on the country, you consume many of them daily without even realizing they belong to PepsiCo. In 2010, the corporation's revenue exceeded $45 billion. And in the Forbes 2012 company ranking, PepsiCo occupies 58th place. Despite the fact that the competition between the two main global sodas, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, has been going on for over 100 years. Cola still hasn't lost its ground and holds first place. But Pepsi marketers are not giving up, hoping to take the lead overall. Pepsi is not just a company. Pepsi is history. It's an example of how, starting with one product, over time, and with accumulated experience, you can spread your idea and business to other markets. As for the founding father himself, I think it's worth mentioning a bit about his life after Pepsi. After selling the company, Caleb joined the North American Paramasonic Society and became a scribe for the Sudan Temple. He was a banking officer, honorary president of the State Railway, and also one of the founders of the North Carolina Naval Militia, which later became a naval reserve. The pharmacist and inventor was also interested in the School of Pharmacy, which he always supported. He awarded the best students with the Bradham Prize every year until his death. Today, specialists characterize Caleb like this: he had a modern business in the wrong decade. He was a third of a century ahead of his time. It was the wrong time that played a cruel trick on him. But be that as it may, that's all history now. So there you have it, friends. A drink that began its history in a god-forsaken town in North Carolina, invented literally on his knees. 120 years later, is a major global brand and a serious player on the political arena. It's worth repeating once more. Every big thing always starts with a bold move. Friends, it's probably time to ask you this question. Which do you personally prefer, Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Leave your comments. And of course, rate this video and write what other topics you'd like to see on our channel. Well, I won't say goodbye. See you next time.